traveling the country to discover some of the most exciting innovations in consumer products and to meet the entrepreneurs working day and night, striving to get and keep them on the shelves of the country's top retailers. Once discovered, we'll introduce them to the experts, product marketers, buyers from major retailers, even potential investors, and see if they have what it takes to sell to the masses. And welcome to Selling to the Masses. We are talking with Kelly Coughlin, who is the president of Annex Communication in Florida, but certainly have some roots here in Northwest Arkansas.
Of course.
Kelly, I want to get into why do I need a PR firm? If I'm an early stage CPG company, early stage company starting out, it's just me, I have a handful of people. Why do I need a PR firm?
And the term PR firm has mixed reaction, and that's really why we took the name seriously when naming ours. We do consider ourselves the annex to a communication department. You know, a company that has few employees, they can't justify the expense to have a vice president of corporate communication.
Right.
So what we give is an entire agency that can deliver those communication functions that help a company translate their message, whether that's to media or to the general public or from a business-to-business perspective.
And when you hear PR, it's typically the politicians who have a PR because they got caught doing something they shouldn't be doing. It's a company who has to act, who uses PR, public relations, to explain away a crisis that they're in or something that they're in trouble. But it doesn't always have to be that way, right?
No, of course. It comes down to, do you want to play offense or do you want to play defense? And personally, when we talk to clients, we always say, do you want a hand in telling your message and being part of the communication, or do you want your competition to do that for you? In our age now of social media and websites that can pop up and news moving so quickly, it's your responsibility to be consistent in the messaging of your company.
And social media brings up an interesting point because a lot of early stage companies will start with their Facebook page. They'll have a website page, which may or may not be very good, and they may have a Twitter account, and they may put them out there. They may push information. Let's talk about the importance of actually responding to information.
Well, it's a wonderful avenue, especially with companies that can't afford complex websites, but it allows you to be part of the conversation. And again, do you want to respond to an unhappy customer or client, or do you want them being able to tell your story for you? And it's interesting with the rise of bloggers, the same principles with traditional media apply to bloggers. Varying sizes of audiences, varying concentrations, and media has become very fragmented. So as newsrooms from a traditional perspective have gotten smaller, the rise of social media and people with niche interest has grown. So both are equally important in pursuing. Not to say that a Today Show segment is the same as a blogger that has 100 followers. However, people choose their medium at this point on how they wish to receive their information. So you want to make sure that your communication strategy is across the board and it's incorporating all of these elements.
Let's talk about dealing with the media because my background is media. It's been 25 years or more, almost 30 years in media, and so I understand kind of how that works. But many people are terrified of the media. They're terrified of a news camera showing up or we're showing up, but they shouldn't be.
No, it's media is reasonable, and again, consistency of message. You have to know what you're about. If you're thrown off by someone asking you some random questions, is a buyer going to do that to you? Absolutely. So, what we try to do is let's talk about what is your story? What are the newsworthy points that you want to make? And we try to deliver that, and we try to work with media in order to establish that. Now, it's something that doesn't always work as planned, and so having a crisis plan in place is critical for any company. You want to always take proactive approaches on how you're going to deal with things. We like to do media training with our clients to know how to re-guide the interview. How do you get out of a bad question? If it's something where it's becoming a personal attack, is this something where you're storming off a set? Or is this something that you bring into the fold of the conversation, and often you can make it work to your advantage?
Right. Now, if you join Rivers, you can storm off the set. It probably becomes a big deal, and it's kind of celebrated. But if you're the owner of a company or you're representing a smaller company, that can be catastrophic.
Well, it's your responsibility as the leader. And again, consistency of message is something that you want going through all channels of your communication, whether that's your in-store demonstration and that's the person representing you that's passing out your product, or if that's a 2020 interview that's a business profile. If you don't know what you and your company are about, no one can fix that. What we try to do is we work with you to refine that message and develop the consistency so that the exposure can work to your advantage.
And you do media training,
Mhm.
and what are some things that you have to tell, kind of some common things, I don't want to go into too much detail, but what are some common things that you have to tell some of these companies that they have to do?
Well, I think everything, first of all, it can range from dressing properly for an interview to, the attitude that you take. Something that often backfires with clients is they'll be asked a question and you can see their body language immediately respond in a negative way. So we try to take the time to go through the good, the bad, the message that you're trying to deliver. And again, we try to be mindful of media and the fact that they're looking for something newsworthy where you need to go buy an ad and then you can say whatever you'd like.
So let's talk about the difference between that, because there is the stuff that's newsworthy, and there's stuff that you need to buy an ad for.
Mm-hmm.
Ad budgets become get very, very expensive.
Sure.
Everybody's can.
Mm-hmm.
How do you tell them to differentiate between that?
Well, we just ask the initial question. When you watch news, we know time of year, we know during the holiday season that we're going to have buying segments and gift guides. Those are opportunities to tag into. We know certain programs do more of a business profile. Do you have an interesting story? But marketing and advertising is really what you say about yourself. PR is what others say about you. So being mindful of that as the benchmark from the beginning is incredibly important with our clients. I've talked with companies that think that every news truck should show up to the opening of a furniture store. Well, a good way to do that is burn it down or find a way to tag into something maybe on a charitable end of things. Are we giving something to Habitat for Humanity? Are we raising money for Children's Miracle Network? Now we're talking about something that's owned by the community. It's something that you can participate within, and it's very newsworthy. Advertising marketing can always be leveraged for editorial, but you have to separate the difference from the beginning.
And you've had some of your clients on major network shows. Today's Show, Fox and Friends, and the Fox News Channel. If I wanted to get something out there, how would I go about that?
Well, again, we start with storytelling. What is the backstory? What is it that makes either the person that heads the company, the staff, the story of the product, what makes it interesting? Then we look at, are there special initiatives that you're applying? Are you raising money for Susan G. Komen and breast cancer awareness? What is your plan for the year? And then we look at the opportunities that we can tag into to increase exposure for not only those wonderful newsworthy initiatives, but for the company as a whole. It has to be a win-win.
So, bottom line, when you're telling somebody you're looking for new clients, obviously, because that's your business.
Sure.
Not everyone's going to be a fit, right?
Oh, absolutely not. And expectations.
I'm going to pay you, and you need to take care of it, even though I've got all this bad stuff.
I've dealt with people that occasionally think the news is something that exists for a personal vendetta, that exists for something that is more of an unseemly, excuse. And we're very firm on the fact that we take pride in operating like a newsroom. We look at things to give the best advice possible on what could be possible. And I've seen PR firms that will promise initiatives. If someone's promising you they can get you on the Today Show, they're doing you a disservice from the beginning, and you need to run. This is packaging, it's knowing media relationships, it's knowing what they respond to, and it's then leveraging your story to not only make their job easier, but to have that win-win in terms of exposure.
And let's talk about those contacts, because in every business relationship that we've had a chance to talk with, and some of the companies we've had a chance to talk with, it all comes back to those relationships.
Sure.
Relationships that they built 20 years ago.
Mhm.
You have some of those relationships, obviously, because of your connections here in Northwest Arkansas, but you spent many years establishing connections with some pretty high-profile media people.
Mhm.
Let's talk about how those can work for you,
Mhm.
and do they ever work against you?
You know, there are times when we're always clear as to who's asking the favor of whom. And you've got to look at things at the end of the day and say, am I making this editor or producer's job a little easier because I'm bringing them something that fits their wheelhouse? Or am I trying to ask a favor? You can only ask so many favors, and those will eventually run against you. So it's being very mindful of the profession, respecting those relationships, and then working them when you have the contact and you know how they respond, working it to your client's advantage.
And then final thoughts from you on what to look for when you're looking for a PR firm and someone who's going to help you tell your story. What are some key things that any company should be mindful of, regardless of where they
I
are?
think number one, they need to listen to you before they start talking. That's huge. What we pride ourselves in is that we can get up to speed very quickly. We work with a variety of different businesses, and we can pick out the fundamentals, but we have to hear your story before we can tell it for you. So if you're dealing with a PR firm that's not listening first, you're starting off on bad footing to begin with.
What about competition in terms of if you're representing my competitor? Is that
Sure.
a good fit? Or
We will not ever take on two competing interests. It's a compromise. It is a conflict of interest, and anyone that's doing that, even if they've got different teams in place, that's going to work against you at some point.
Kelly Coughlin with Annex Communication, thank you very much for joining us, and
Thank you,
thank you
Adam.
for joining us on Selling to the Masses. For information about appearing on the show or about sponsorship opportunities,